Hi, guys. Welcome back to Recap Flicks, where we recap 2 hour movies in 10 minutes. Today's movie recap would cover a 2013 horror thriller movie named House of the Witch Doctor. Enjoy the recap. On a snowy night, John, Leslie Van Houten's fiance, gets trapped in the woods as he is being pursued by assailants. After a few meters of running, he's captured and terminated by his pursuers. Following the gruesome act, the masked men drag John's body further into the woods. A year later, at her college dorm, Leslie and her friends plan to spend a weekend at her parents' house. In one scene, Regina, one of Leslie's other four friends, checks up on her and tells her they're all waiting for her by the car. Apparently, Leslie and all her four friends, Regina's boyfriend, Tom, religious Patty, and her boyfriend, Thad, were all going to spend the weekend at Leslie's home up north. Leslie preps to leave for her house, and Regina joins the others in the car. There, Regina does some mouth-to-mouth action with Tom and gets scolded by the religious fanatic, Patty, for engaging in obscene activities out in the open. The two girls get into a small fight, which ends on a short note with Regina apologizing to Patty. A few minutes later, Leslie joins them and drives them to her parents' mansion. Elsewhere, Clifford arrives at his mother's house after being released from prison. His mother receives him with open arms and serves him his favorite meal. Clifford embarrassingly settles down to eat his food as his mom fondles her son. After lunch, Clifford gets to look at himself in the mirror and reflect on his new path in life. A few hours later, Clifford decides to hang out with his old buddies again. He dresses up and leaves the house against his mother's wishes. Clifford gets to his buddy's car and a few minutes later and reunites with his old friend. They both go downtown to get substances from a dealer. The dealer redirects them to a more secure location for the transaction. Getting there, the dealer holds Clifford at gunpoint after he insults his girl. Clifford manages to calm the situation by knocking the dealer out. The following day, Clifford and his buddy snort coke in their car parked behind a restaurant. As they do their stuff, Leslie and her friends park beside them to take a break from their long journey. When they notice the beauties coming out of the car, Clifford and his deranged friend follow Thad and Patty, both couples, to a diner across the street. Leslie, Regina, and Tom, on the other hand, step to a corner for a smoke break. Their little smoke break is cut short when a hobo walks up to them and warns them of the impending danger. They leave without giving too much attention to the hobo, understandably. Back at the diner, Clifford and his buddy harass Thad and his girlfriend. This goes on for a few minutes until they're forced to leave after citing the sheriff. Sheriff Gooden walks up to the couple, hears their story, and rushes outside to try and catch the two losers, all to no avail. A couple of minutes later, Gooden gets back to the diner to see everyone settle down. There, he comforts them and says his goodbyes. A few hours after twilight, Leslie and her friends finally arrive at the Van Houten mansion. Seeing the mansion for the first time, Regina and the others are psyched. Leslie sees them in and introduces them to her parents, Peter and Irene Van Houten. Both Leslie's parents welcome them in and step outside for the night. Just mere minutes after settling in, Regina and her boyfriend get hot and sweaty under the sheets. Meanwhile, Thad and Patty stay in different rooms. Patty tries convincing Thad to stay with her. However, her overly religious boyfriend rejects getting Patty's kitty cat that night. Leslie says goodbye to her parents as they leave for the night. She walks back in and takes a shower. Only this time, images of John, her deceased fiancé, come flashing back into her mind. Leslie curls up in the shower crying as she misses John dearly. After her shower, Regina pays Leslie a visit to check up on her. Later on, it's dinner time and everyone's called downstairs. Tom and Thad both watch some TV, while Leslie and the other girls finish up dinner. When it's time to eat, everyone digs in. Meanwhile, in their search for a rich house to rob, Clifford and his buddy stumble upon Van Houten's residence. They see Leslie's car parked out front and immediately recognize it. After dinner, Tom, Regina, and Patty all do the dishes. Tom steals Regina from the kitchen for round 2, leaving Patty to do all the dishes and rethink her life decisions. Tom and Regina make out in the corridor when Tom suddenly sees the basement door. Despite Dr. Peters' warning to never go down there, Tom still tries breaking into the basement. Before he could pick the lock, however, Leslie appears from down the corridor and warns them to never open the door. Sounds like something fishy was going on there. Tom and Regina apologize and leave without even asking what's down there. Typical horror movie tactic. A little further into the night, Thad hears a thud outside the front door. He gets alerted and goes to check it out. He peeps out and sees Clifford's buddy on the floor pretending to be in pain. Gullible Thad opens the door and gets knocked out cold by Clifford from behind. They successfully break into the mansion and tie up Thad. Then they move upstairs to Patty's, Tom's, and Regina's rooms to tie them all up. Leslie, who's sound asleep, hears the screams from her room. She wakes up, steps down quietly, and sees her friends all tied up and laid stomach down on the floor. She sneaks past the two intruders to call the cops. As you'd expect, no cell reception. Clifford tells his buddy to check upstairs for any other inhabitants while he cuts the phone lines. His buddy walks upstairs to Leslie's room and scans through the room. He finds no one and joins his friend downstairs. There, they get high and ready to violate Regina and Patty. After snorting all the coke they could find, Clifford and his buddy take Regina and Patty upstairs to violate them, leaving Thad and Tom all tied up. When both criminals are gone, Tom wobbles his way to the kitchen, gets his hands on a knife, and cuts himself and Thad loose. They both arm themselves and walk toward their respective girlfriends. Tom gets to Regina's room and punctured Cliff's buddy's chests. The two engage in a brawl, which ends with Tom getting terminated. Regina takes advantage of this and runs outside to find help. Thad, on the other hand, finds Patty already violated and silent in shock. Unknown to him, Clifford was behind him. Clifford terminates Thad and lays him to rest. Regina runs through the street until she finds an old couple driving towards her. She stops them and tells them her story, after which they offer her a ride to the police station to find help. Meanwhile, Clifford and his buddy reunite after doing their vile act. Clifford walks out of the room to find Regina and urges his friend to follow him. Leslie, who was hiding in the closet, comes out and knocks Cliff's buddy out. Clifford walks back to the room looking for his friend and gets hit by Leslie, who sprints to the basement. Clifford tries to stop her, but gets his nutsack hit hard by Leslie's baseball bat. Clifford writhes in pain as his buddy comes to comfort him. Outside, Sheriff Gooden arrives at the mansion to check on things. He finds Leslie and hears all there is to hear about the situation before continuing his search for the criminals. Gooden searches the rooms and finds Clifford's buddy up in one of them. He holds him at gunpoint and asks for Clifford. Cliff's buddy stalls Gooden long enough for Clifford to appear at his back and take him out. Patty comes to reality and condemns Clifford. Clifford gets pissed and ends her life immediately. After taking out the sheriff and Patty, Clifford and his buddy both work towards opening the heavily bolted basement door. They try breaking it down but fail every single time. Annoyed, Clifford decides to burn the house down so Patty doesn't get out alive. Before they carry out their plan, they hear the doorbell ring. Cliff's buddy walks out to answer the door but finds the masked men from earlier seeing themselves in. Some seconds later, Peter and Irene Van Houten walk into the house with some weirdly dressed dudes with axes. Peter and Irene invite Clifford and his buddy to join them in the basement, but the two criminals make a run for it. They get to their car successfully, but when they kick the ignition, it doesn't start. Very soon, more masked men appear around their car, and one of them shows Clifford the car battery they took out earlier. In the next scene, Regina throws a fit at the old couple's residence. They keep telling her the sheriff is on his way to their house to tend to her if she could exercise a little patience. They offer her a suspicious cup of tea, and Regina takes it. Seconds after taking it, she gets knocked out. In Van Houten's basement, Clifford and his buddy let out screams of regret as they realize they're about to be used as human sacrifices in some sort of ritual. Peter explains their new reality to them. Apparently, Leslie was some sort of host for the spirit they were worshiping, and they needed to sacrifice a select set of humans every year to bring her from the pits of hell to the real world. After explaining things to the duo, Peter cuts off Cliff's buddy's head and lets the blood drain into a calabash. After letting the red liquid drain, they pour it all on Leslie's head. Leslie, who seems to be enjoying the thrilling effect of the red liquid, turns over to Clifford and waits for her dad to do his thing on him. Peter peels off a part of Clifford's stomach skin and gives it to his wife. Then he terminates Clifford and begins the next phase of the ritual. This time, the old couple drag a knocked-out Regina into the basement and lay her next to Leslie. Regina wakes up from her slumber and sees the horror unfold before her. Devoid of what to do, she asks for Peter from help. Peter rips Regina's heart out and gives it to his wife, who squeezes the blood out of it and gives it to Leslie. Then they recite the chants to invite the goddess from hell to live in Leslie's body. After a few moments of silence, they find out it didn't work. Leslie and her mother let out a cry of sadness over their failure. Peter reassures his family that they tried the sacrifice the following year and things go back to normal. Weird, right? The next day, Leslie preps to go to school. She calls for her dad, who is in the basement cleaning the remains of the victims. He gets back upstairs to greet her daughter goodbye. After acting like what they did the night before was normal, Leslie leaves the house for school. In the final minutes of the movie, Peter and Irene prepare to get under the sheets when suddenly Regina's possessed body appears in front of them. Guess they really did succeed in bringing a demon to Earth, huh? Thanks for watching, guys. If you'd like more recaps like this in the future, like the video, hit the subscribe button, and turn on post notifications to receive future recaps.